Pokémon Festivals of Champions is finally back after what feels like an eternity. If you've been around the channel for a while, you'll know that I made a video covering this manga, and I praised it really highly. And now its author has finally returned, giving us the conclusion and backstory of Red and Pikachu, in an extremely heartfelt, emotional, and satisfying ending. So with enough intro, let's cover this long-awaited prologue. On my first video on this fan manga, I talked a little bit about Red's backstory, but this video will fully delve into it, so take it both as a recap and as a new story. Our story begins with a younger Red watching a movie with his mum. This movie being Stand By Me. The movie follows a group of boys, all with their own emotional scars, growing up and having an adventure together. If you didn't know, this movie is actually referenced in the original Red and Blue games, as well as the Gotcha music video. Since he's a little kid, Red wonders to his mum, what does the movie's title mean? And she tells him it's something like Friends Together Forever. Red continues to wonder, saying that he asked about what the title meant, but at the same time, he still couldn't tell you what he thought of it. Red is a kid who, unlike most in the Pokemon world, has no real aspiration to head out and have an adventure. To Red, he sees going on an adventure as something as scary. He can't imagine leaving home and following an unknown road. Red thinks to himself how he'll never be able to take that step, looking out onto the outside world, where he can see many routes, cities, forests, mountains, and even the Pokemon League, all waiting for him to come visit. But Red never takes that step, as he was scared to invest in something he knows nothing about, staring distantly under the blue sky. Red then goes to meet with his friends, like Blue, a girl who's laid back but also says some strangely mature things. She likes to read books and watch movies, connecting deeply with their stories. Because of these reasons, Blue has depth. On the other side, there's Green, a boy who may be a jerk but is smart. He knows a lot about Pokemon, and although him and Red are the same physically in height and speed, Green always manages to have better test scores than him, win more games than him, and even got a Pokemon first, and most importantly, knows a lot about Pokemon. Green tells Red about his dreams of wanting to become the strongest Pokemon trainer that will win the Pokemon League. Because of these reasons, there's power in Green. Where Blue can feel and Green has power, Red has none of these traits. A group of kids are assigned homework to write an essay over the summer vacation. Blue wrote about the SS Anne and so did Green. Red lies and says he did the same thing, following the crowd like a sheep. When time comes to actually get his work done, Red thinks maybe he'll talk about Pokemon trainers, thinking back to a video they would always watch. A Pokemon League finals with a young Professor Oak versus a young Agatha. When they were watching, Red would ask Oak, isn't he scared of Pokemon battles with the way dangerous moves fly about? And Professor Oak would always tell him that when it comes to Pokemon trainer battles or even wild battles, people and Pokemon just can't stay apart. It's been like that for generations. Although they may fight and hurt each other, they'll always make up and come together because all living things can't live alone. Red realizes to himself he won't be able to make the steps of a journey if he goes alone. He then gets called by his mother to go get some potatoes from the shed, and Red goes to do exactly that. Outside, he meets up with Green, and the two head over to the shed. When they get to the door, they hear the sound of something eating. Inside, they find an injured Pikachu, whose eyes suddenly meet with Red and the Pikachu suddenly attacks. This is now the point where we shift our focus away from Red onto his lifelong partner, Pikachu. In its early days, Pikachu was just like any other Pokemon, hatched into a herd and following instructions. One of these instructions is that Pichu is meant to learn how to shoot lightning so that it can get food for itself. Once a Pichu learns to do this, it gets self-confidence, and with enough of it, it will be able to evolve into a Pikachu. But in the pack, there's always one Pokemon that will be left behind, in our case being our Pikachu, who could not evolve. Pichu was born with cheek sacs that were underdeveloped, making it able to store a large amount of electricity, but not discharge it. Because of this, just like in real-life nature, it was left at the back of the herd, and was the bottom of the pecking order. After all, a Pikachu that can't use electric attacks was useless. This however didn't stop Pikachu from seeing the pack as the world to him. One day, the herd was attacked by a trainer and their Graveler, causing them to flee. Pichu however got left behind and ended up getting caught, whilst Raichu led the pack away. The man who caught Pikachu was an elite trainer, and when he brought Pikachu home, he showed him Lieutenant Surge and his Raichu, telling him this would be his future. Every day, Pichu was trained hard and harshly by the man, but never did Pichu attempt to escape, for one reason and one reason only, being that in the first time in his life, someone cared for his future. So after tough training, Pichu would finally evolve into a Pikachu. Pikachu would start to understand what humans are saying after spending such a long time with the man. The words he would hear often were to be strong. To Pikachu, being strong for his trainer was all that mattered, and for that time, they were happy together. But a relationship built like this would never end well. After all, even if it evolved, Pikachu could still not generate electric attacks. Because of this, the man would beat and abuse Pikachu verbally and physically. All this brought back the trauma from when Pikachu was a child, being unable to release electricity. And with that, the man released Pikachu, turning his back on it and forcing it to run back to the wild and fight its herd. When Pikachu did find its herd, Rather than being treated with open arms, he gets shocked by Raichu, who rejects it, as a Pokemon with a scent of a human cannot return to the herd. So everything Pikachu had done to that point was more or less useless. All of this led to Pikachu having to leave its home at the Viridian Forest and wander all the way to Pallet Town, which brings us to present day, where after attacking Red, it faints from exhaustion. Pikachu starts to slowly get healed up back to speed by Professor Oak, and he explains to Red and Green what most likely happened to the Pikachu. Hearing all this made Red feel even more scared about going out into the outside world, facing the harsh reality of how bad it really can be. Unable to forget about the Pikachu, Red goes to his closest friends for their opinions, who both, albeit by different phrasing, say the same thing. This situation's sad, but something they shouldn't get involved with. Although Red can't feel deeply like Blue, or know all about Pokemon like Green, he still can't shake the feeling that he should be doing something. Going against what everyone was saying, Red heads to Pikachu's room in the lab, trying to help it. Doing this would get him attacked numerous times, but he heard the voices of anger and pain from Pikachu. So Red toughed out all this rejection so he could hear Pikachu's true thoughts, being loneliness. Although he has no power, although the world may be scary, Red didn't back down and went to Pikachu's level, introducing himself and revealing his intentions. What Red wants to be is his friend, ending the first chapter of this origin story. I don't want to spend too much time on my thoughts on this chapter since there are 2 more to go, and I'll be rambling a lot more later on, so we'll continue on to chapter 2. Which opens with Pikachu harshly declining Red's offer of friendship by biting his hand. Of course, with all that Pikachu suffered, it wouldn't be so simple just to become his friend, and it won't be so simple for Red to help it move on so quickly. Anyway, Professor Oak finds Red with the Pikachu and takes him out of the lab, bringing him home, since he did enter it without permission. Red gets a justified telling off from his mum, leaving him grounded for 5 days. During this time, Oak tries to take care of Pikachu, but he notices that it only eats the food that Red gave to it, meaning the offer Red gave it could still be up for consideration. After his grueling 5 days of grounding punishment, Red undergoes an epiphany. Seeing some more of Professor Oak's old videos, Red learns the lessons of respect, admiration, and of course, communication. So since he has one more task of school, being free study, he decides he'll make a Pikachu observation journal in order to help both him and Pikachu understand more about each other. So after discussing this with his mum and Professor Oak, Red finally gets his wish, being allowed to come to the lab and visit Pikachu. During this time, we get to see some funny interactions between Red and Pikachu, such as what food Pikachu likes and also how it can attack. The next day, Green visits Red and tries to get him to give up, telling him no matter what he does, it won't help. But Red refuses to give up. Green tells Red, ever since he got his Eevee, you've been jealous and wanted a Pokemon for yourself. Red denies his statement and Green gives up, as he's got better things to do. But not without leaving something behind for Red, being a Pokemon grooming kit. After all, although he's a jerk, he's still Red's friend. The antics between Red and Pikachu continue, with every day Red continuing to see the Pokemon. Despite what he said, Pikachu could never understand Red's behavior, finding him to be suspicious, as he thought humans were meant to be selfish creatures, deciding what type of Pokemon they want their Pokemon to be, and making them conform to that, referring back to his old trainer. One day, the weather's thundering and raining, causing Pikachu's electricity to get even more riled up, forcing it to attack Red more harshly than it's ever done before. Fortunately, Professor Oak comes to the rescue, realizing Pikachu can't release its electricity, so he goes to get a machine that will help it out. Although Red wants to help, he's warned if he touches Pikachu now, he'll get shocked. Pikachu flashes back to its suffering and tries to leave, but Red helps it, even if it gets him shocked in the process, going cheek to cheek to Pikachu, just like how they do in the wild. And for that instance, Pikachu felt something other than anger and hatred towards Red, controlling its electricity and stopping Red from getting shocked, but passing out itself in the process. Once Pikachu wakes up thanks to the professor's machine, Red calls him strong for being able to stay all that time without discharging electricity. Red offers the Pokemon food, but he only has Pecha berries, which Pikachu hates due to their sweetness. But despite that, Pikachu chooses to eat the berries, once again showing that it's opening up just a little bit to our hero. But as you know, good things can never last. In Viridian City, we see a certain trainer watching Lieutenant Surge on TV. This trainer of course being Pikachu's old trainer. The trainer then gets a call on his phone saying the deadline for getting a Raichu on the same level as Lieutenant Surge is coming to an end, but if he manages to get it on time, he'll be allowed to rejoin the organization. It's revealed the man he was talking to is actually Archer. If you didn't know, Archer is an admin of Team Rocket and one of Giovanni's most loyal. The trainer accepts, eerily ending the second chapter. Okay, things are really starting to heat up now, and I promise you the next and final chapter gives you a conclusion that makes everything worth it. We start the chapter off getting a short backstory of the trainer. He had joined Team Rocket and started rising the ranks, even reaching the point where he was leading a group. His group was tasked a simple mission, capture Lieutenant Surge's Raichu, but they all failed. He was then given a second chance, being to catch and train a Raichu. Turns out, this trainer sucks pretty bad, as he also competed in the Indigo League, but lost in the 3rd round. After this, he underwent a losing streak, which resulted in his life turning to crime. He tried to find an already strong Raichu in the power plant, but he got scared when he saw the legendary Zapdos. So when he finally caught Pichu, trained it, and evolved it, all for it not to be able to use any electric type moves, he let out all his rage onto it. Archer tells him that the weak are worthless, with the only thing they're good for is to be bait for the strong. Which reminds him of when he first caught Pichu, who was literally the bait for the herd to escape. This enrages him even more, saying that he'll make sure to go find that herd and catch every single one of them. Now with our villain fully established, we head back to Red, who's now outside with Pikachu, having a race. When suddenly, an injured Pikachu emerges from the bushes, the same Pikachu from Pikachu's past, who's always looking out for it. Red pieces together that something bad must have happened, as it has the same wounds that Pikachu used to have. Although he was treated really badly by this herd, Pikachu decides he'll be the hero, and the 2 Pikachu begin to run away. Red follows them but is then stopped by Green. He tells Red it's way too dangerous to go all the way to Viridian City without a Pokemon, but Red knows deep down the one who's really in danger is Pikachu, so he'll go after it. He may not know what lies ahead or what's been hurting Pikachu, or even what lies in the real world, but he knows he'll have to go. This art of Red running towards the outside world is honestly amazing when you look back to the first chapter. Red has always been scared to leave Pallet Town and go for an adventure, as he's always been afraid of what lies ahead, and even then he never had the want to take that very first step. But now that Red's finally so close to befriending Pikachu, and he knows what danger lies ahead for him, Red can't sit back and do nothing, so he chooses to finally take the step with something to fight for. What makes everything 10 times better is that Red's still going despite the outside world looking the scariest it's ever looked, with thunderstorms looming over everything. As Red and the 2 Pikachu run through the town, cities and routes, Red thinks to himself that honestly he is scared, and wonders, is Pikachu scared as well? He's been tortured and kicked out, but he still wants to go and fight. Red's about to tell Pikachu that he's strong, but they see a wild Rattata completely overwhelming a swarm of Beedrill with his speed. This may seem random at first, but this is actually the same Rattata that Green catches and evolves into Raticate later on in the story. That small cameo aside, Red and Pikachu finally reach their destination, where Pikachu's old owner is attacking the Pikachu and Raichu of Viridian Forest with his Graveler. Our Pikachu tries to help the Raichu, but it shocks him instead, refusing to help. Because of this, Red understands the situation. Raichu is the leader of Pikachu's old group, and that trainer is Pikachu's old owner. So Red decides to try get involved, but he stops in his tracks when he sees Raichu get gut-checked by Graveler. At this point, Red's bravery that he had in coming all the way here slowly but surely starts to disappear. Like the way this is drawn, you can really feel the cold sweat through Red. Red tries to stay strong, telling himself not to be afraid just because the guy's an adult. The trainer notices Pikachu and starts brutally verbally assaulting it, telling it has no reason to live if it has no electric attacks. Red tries to attack with a stick, but he gets whipped directly, causing him to scream out in pain. For a sheltered kid like Red, this experience is definitely going to be one that leaves an impact on his rest of his life. Pikachu tries to protect Red, but against the man in his whip, they stand no chance and both get ruthlessly attacked. The trainer then gets his Graveler to attack Red the same way it attacked Raichu. At this point, Red can't even trick himself any longer. From the pain of being hit to the man's intimidating nature, Red is scared straight up, and he does what makes sense for a child his age. He runs away, cause what else can he do? He's only a boy fighting against an adult with a Pokemon and a weapon. As Red flees through the forest, Pikachu is getting helplessly attacked, and Red thinks to himself, why did he ever think he could help? Realizing deep down he was just a coward, he falls into a lake and looks at his pitiful reflection, filled with rage at his own weakness. As the water splashes around Red, he realizes this is exactly what Pikachu felt, and this triggers exactly what Red needs to remind himself why he came here in the first place. And man, this art is insane. I fully understand why this chapter took so long to come out. Pikachu's desperately trying to cling on to life, but all it can do is just manage a tiny bit of electricity. As the man is about to throw Pikachu away into the pond, Red swings in literally to save the day, kicking both the man and his Graveler into the pond. When I tell you this was so satisfying to see, I mean it. Red grabs all the Pokeballs that had captured the Pikachu and releases them all into the wild. The other Pikachu all comfort the Raichu that fought, but they all ignore our Pikachu, who risked his life and suffered the most, all just for them, once again pushing the Pokemon further into the darkness. But he sees a little bit of light when Red apologizes to him, telling him he'll never run away from his side again. The trainer and Pokemon come out of the river and they're seriously angry. Red tells himself, yes, he is scared, but even if he's scared, even if he's in pain, he needs to stay strong, just like how Oak and Green are. Red shouts out as a sort of battle cry that he is Red of Pallet Town and that Pikachu is his friend. The man whips Red again, but this time Red traps the whip with his foot, allowing him to grab it and throw it away. He demands the man take back everything he said about Pikachu, telling him all about everything Pikachu suffered in getting kicked out by his herd, from getting kicked out by its own trainer and even the world. But even through all of that, he still came back in order to fight for those important to him, ending his speech off by telling Pikachu, out of everyone, more than anyone or anything, Pikachu is strong, bringing the Pokemon to tears and giving it a will to fight, if not for itself, but now for his friend. And instead of using a move like Thunderbolt that regular Pikachu would use, it chooses to use a move similar to what the Rattata was doing, finally releasing its electricity and creating the move Volt Tackle. It clashes against a Graveler, who starts to crack, as if you remember right before this, Graveler got completely soaked. So with full resolve, Pikachu completely smashes through the Graveler. The man begins to panic, telling Pikachu that he takes back everything he said, and starts begging, even having the nerve to tell the Pokemon it can come join him again. And in the most satisfying attack ever, Pikachu shocks the man, making him go down for the count. Overlooking this, Raichu and the female Pikachu from before give Pikachu one last look of eye contact before leaving. Although the day's been saved, Pikachu thinks to itself, no one needs him anymore, but he doesn't need them. And he takes his leave, but not before looking at the beaten Red. Red notices this and tries to stop the Pokemon, realizing what it must be feeling. It can finally use electric attacks, but what's the point if it can't be accepted anywhere? It doesn't want to get hurt again by anyone, so it's going off alone. But Red won't give up just here. He tells the Pokemon exactly what he wants. He wants to become a Pokemon trainer. He explains, a Pokemon trainer is someone who trains a Pokemon, getting stronger together. And in order to start his journey, Red wants Pikachu to join him. In the back of his mind, Red has always wanted to follow this dream, but it felt impossible. He was scared of leaving home and he didn't believe in himself. But once he had met Pikachu, he finally became brave. He then tells Pikachu if he ever finds himself not believing in himself, then he'll be sure to never stop believing in him right by his side, and they'll be the best friends forever. That right there is some Gurren Lagann type stuff. He offers his hand out to the Pokemon, who finally turns around and accepts Red, but not by his hand, instead going to his face covered in scratches. Red comments saying it's true. They may both be hurt, and they may be afraid of not wanting to lose to the world. Together they can be strong enough to be the best in the world. So at this point, we finally reached our destination, deep in the forest under Mount Silver. We've reached the soul of Pikachu, who opens itself up to Red, knowing why it was born into this world, and lets it all out. After this touching scene, the author makes the smart choice to no longer have any text until the epilogue, letting us see the scene of Pikachu and Red making their way back home. We also get to see the scene where Red tells the others his dream. This is what also starts the path of Green's disdain for Red. We see that the Team Rocket member got justifiably arrested, and Red's mother arrives, giving Red and Pikachu a really nice hug. After this prologue, we get the main story as we all know and love it, which if you haven't read, I don't know what you're still doing here. Go read it, link in the description. This story was so heart-wrenching, but also so wholesome at the end, going more into depth with Pokemon's most known duo, Trainer and his Pikachu. Of course, we all love the other duos that we've seen, but one forged over time and a bond like this really feels unbreakable. Finding your purpose in life is something that people struggle with even in real life, and that's what makes this story so perfect. It feels genuinely real, not artificial. And after going through some painful things, it may seem hard to open up again. But like the story showed, you gotta remain strong. Once again, go read this manga. It may be fan-made, but it has a lot of love created with it. I've linked the author's Pixiv where you can read the raws, but I've also left a link for the translated pages. A big thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Take care.